What's up, Voicey veterans? This is your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddits are r/MaliciousCompliance and r/EntitledParents. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode. This story was called $1 million. You got it, boss. Eons ago, when pay-per-click advertising was just starting to catch on in the world, I worked for a small company that specialized in lead generation. Essentially, people paid this company a single monthly fee to drive leads to them. Our pay-per-click team was literally myself and my coworker. We're getting a decent stream of leads in and customers are fairly happy. But the boss, who is also the owner of the company, wants more. He wants everybody's inbox full of leads. But he doesn't understand the notion of pay in pay-per-click. So we dutifully set up campaigns until it comes time to enter the budget. My coworker, who is in charge of managing the actual bid price, asks him how much he wants to spend. His reply? He throws her his credit card and says, "Figure it out." She tried to tell him that we needed some number as a maximum amount we were willing to spend in a given month to get those leads in. Boss said, "Put it on the credit card. I don't care. Just get those leads in here." "But we need a number. Give me a number that's the absolute maximum you're willing to spend to get those leads in here. I'm not just putting any budget in here, it's your credit card without you telling me what you want to spend." He fires back an email and I quote, $1 million. I should remind you that this is a small company and there's a grand total of 10 of us. So it's not some multinational corporation. My coworker, being smarter than my gerbil of a boss, writes back, "Are you absolutely sure? I'm asking in all seriousness. What is the budget you want me to put?" $1 million! And don't bother me about it again. "Yes, sir." She puts in whatever the maximum is that the search engine would allow. I know it wasn't $1 million, but it was up there. Campaigns launch, phones are ringing off the hook. People are pouring in so fast we can't keep up. Clients are happy, boss is happy, until he sees the search advertising bill. It's several $100,000. He is certain his credit card has been hacked. But nope, we kept a paper trail. Every bid accounted for, every click. Everything. He actually went to his business lawyer to see if he had any recourse, and the lawyer was probably thinking, "You're about as dumb as a brick," and said that if he did indeed write that, then yes, he's responsible for that payment. The guy had to sell his toys, his fancy car, his fancy boat, just to pay off the balance, and the company folded not long after that. If there's one bit of financial advice I can give, be careful with your credit card. Oh, be careful with it. This story was called Only English in Your Household? This story happened a few years ago. I used to work for a well-known alarm company doing installs when we got a new guy in. He seemed fresh off the boat with terrible English. And me being fluent in Russian, he got tagged with me. Here's the cast. Me, Ivan, new guy, and Karen, the homeowner. Here's some background. I've been working with Ivan for a few weeks before the malicious compliance. We spoke Russian between each other, but changed to English whenever the customer was around to maintain professionalism. Most customers were okay with this. As you could tell, Ivan was struggling with the language, and I would do all the talking to the customer until we got to Karen. That day, it started out just like any other. We get to the house, a lady greets us at the door. Didn't know at the time this was Karen as there were no signs. We do a walk around and everything seems fine. Ivan has not spoken a single word yet. We get to work in the basement and I just start talking to Ivan like usual. Not even 5 minutes later, Karen comes running down the stairs demanding that we stop talking in whatever language it was we were speaking in, as this is an English-speaking household and she does not want her kids to hear that. We apologize and continue working. Ivan is mostly staying quiet until he tries to ask for a tool he doesn't know the name for in English and says the name in Russian. Karen runs out of the laundry room and starts berating Ivan for breaking her rules. Ivan is stumped and mumbles an apology while Karen huffs away in triumph. A couple hours later, while running wire, Ivan was drilling through the studs and came in contact with a household electrical wire. A flash and a pop and Ivan starts cussing in Russian. Immediately, the laundry door bangs open and Karen is standing there without missing a beat. Ivan turns to her and switches to English, probably to explain what he is saying. I was amazed at his vocabulary there, and it seemed like he was swearing for a solid minute before he started running out of words. Karen turned red and started yelling at us to get out, and I knew there was no saving this dumpster fire, so we just packed up and left. On the road back to the office, I found out Ivan is a fan of English crime and gangster movies where he learned his share of profanity. Getting back to the office, we got written up, but the boss still had a chuckle. Ivan stayed there for a few more months before leaving the company, and I never found out if he realized how malicious his compliance was. As for the customer, I have no idea what ended up happening to her, as I never went back. Karen, oh Karen. This is a free country, and I will not stand for you limiting what languages we speak. As a form of defiance against this evil Karen, I want you guys to let us know in the comments below any languages you might know and any cool phrases that might go along with them. This story was called, "You Want It Microwaved Again? You sure? Okay." Alright, so this is not my story, but one from a guy called Alex who used to work at the daycare I attended as a child. Currently, you need mega qualifications to work with kids. Back then, however, the law was different. Alex was only about 15 or 16 at the time, so I try not to judge him too harshly for his behavior here. A little boy, let's call him Brian, because I don't remember what his name was, wanted something heated up in the microwave. He was probably 6 or 7. Well, we all know that microwaves love to cook the dish in the outer 2% of the food while leaving the rest of the meal crappy and cold. Naturally, Brian is unimpressed and he demands it to be microwaved again and is already crying and shouting from this one incident. Kids. Alex heats it up again. Brian can't see the steam and demands Alex to do it again. After a solid 5 minutes of trying to explain to Brian that the food is now hot, just eat it before it gets cold again, and if we heat it up again, it will start burning. Alex finally relents and does what the tantruming child demands. Now, the food is too hot, and Brian wants it back in the microwave to cool down. A short fuse later, Brian's now on his back on the floor screeching that the food be microwaved again, while poor Alex is trying to figure out how to handle this situation. Where are the adults? This is why we had to change our laws. Anyway, the story ends with Alex giving in and saying, "Fine, I'll microwave it again if that's what you really want." And the food was just ruined, dried out and burnt. This is why we don't let children make their own decisions. Okay, I do not have the patience to work with children, and I admire all those that do. So, people who work with children, let us know in the comments below how you're supposed to handle a situation like that. Alright, from Entitled Parents, this story was called, "Mother Thinks She Has the Rights to My Child and Treats Him Like a Doll to Show Off." Honestly, I just need a place to vent. My mother is the entitled parent in this story. Her and I have never had a great relationship. She resented me growing up because she was a single mom and never wanted children. She would never spend time with me or engage with me and would instead throw money at me to show she cared. Now, I'm grown up and independent and just had a baby of my own, and she feels entitled to my son. I have made certain decisions about his upbringing that I'm trying to adhere to. Nothing crazy, just trying to avoid using unnecessary products on him. No baby lotion, no diaper cream unless he's got a rash, homemade baby food, etc. He's now 4 months and has been working well for us. My mother is very insistent that she gets to see him 2 to 3 times a week. She refers to herself as Glamma, a mix of glam and grandma, and she has already procured a few items that say best grandma ever. I have been very hesitant to let her watch him for extended periods of time. I did not have the best upbringing and honestly believe she would not do what's best for my son. She has always been a very materialistic person and extremely concerned about the image she presents to other people. So I get anxiety thinking of him staying overnight at her place. She keeps asking for him to spend the night, saying she's doing it for me because I need the sleep. But I know it's because she likes the novelty of having a baby around. She first started asking for him to spend the night at her place when he was 2 weeks old. I have said no every time. When she was first allowed to babysit him, I had to set ground rules because she kept trying to plan parties whenever he was over. She was trying to show him off to all of her friends and neighbors. The thing is, he is a baby. Large groups of people are not good for babies because their immune systems are weak, and our city has had a number of measles outbreaks. I had to tell her repeatedly that she couldn't be inviting groups of strangers over to pass him around like a doll. She finally agreed and I let him spend a few hours at her place. Still, she kept asking for him to spend the night. She also calls me every day, asking when he is going to visit her again and offering to take him off my hands for a few days like he's an inconvenience. My husband had to go to British Columbia for a wedding, so I was alone for a week. It was hard. 6 days into it and I was at the end of my rope. I had barely had any adult interaction and had only slept 3 hours a day. So I call my mother up and ask her if my son and I can spend the night at her place. I needed sleep but didn't want to leave him there without me all night. I figured this would be a good compromise. I would be available if anything went wrong and she would get off my back about him staying over. She had been nagging me for weeks about how I should just give him pablum and he would sleep through the night. He was a preemie and our pediatrician said to wait for solids, but she thought she knew best. I had to constantly tell her not to feed him anything but his milk. The night came where I was supposed to go to her place. I get there and there are 15 other people over. Turns out, she was having a dinner party. Whether or not she had arranged this before I asked to come over, I don't know. I told her my son goes to bed at 8 and I really needed to sleep. She assured me everyone would be gone by 9. That didn't happen. They ended up starting a bonfire and she's trying to get me to sit by the fire with my son. I don't want him around all that smoke. He's only 4 months old, so he needs to stay in the house. Besides, it's 8 and he needs to go to bed. She tells me I'm being unreasonable and I should just let him sleep by the fire. I put my foot down and said no. He ends up in his bassinet and I'm waiting for the party to be done so I can sleep. Because my husband has been gone and I have been dealing with the babe on my own for 6 days, my sleep schedule has been completely out of whack. I was hoping to take some sleeping pills to get a good night's rest since she was going to be with him throughout the night. So now I'm waiting for her to come in and take over for me. 10 rolls around and she pops in for a drink before heading back out. I ask her again how late the party is going to go since I am desperate to get some sleep. She tells me it should be over soon, again, and that she can't stay in the house because she has guests over and she needs to entertain them. 10:45 comes and she's still at the bonfire. Again, she comes in to grab something and sees that I'm still up. She tells me I'm being silly and should just go to sleep. She doesn't seem to understand that I have insomnia and need to take sleeping pills and can't do that until someone else can watch my son. That someone being her, since I asked and she offered. I remind her that I was there to sleep and was waiting on her. She then tells me I'm being ungrateful since she had this party planned and couldn't ask everyone to leave. She said I should just go to sleep and not worry about my son so much. I tell her she can't be taking care of him if she's outside, she wouldn't even hear him if he woke up. She said I should stop stressing, that people will leave soon, and went back to the party. 11:30 comes around and I am so tired I start crying. I can't sleep and I wasn't getting the help I asked for. I decide to just take my son and go home. If I was doing it on my own, I'd rather be around my own things and in my own bed. I pack him up and send her a text saying she was too preoccupied to watch my son and that we were going home. She didn't even see my message until 12:30. How well could she have watched him if she didn't even leave her bonfire until then? I ended up getting a string of messages saying that it was unfair of me to take him away. That I shouldn't say she didn't care because she spent $700 on him that day, so she obviously cared. I never mentioned anything about caring or not caring. She said I was being ungrateful because if I had stayed, I would have been able to sleep in the morning while she took care of him. I don't trust for 1 minute that she would have done right by him. Her guests were taking up all her time. A week goes by and she asks twice again if he can stay the night at her place. I have no faith in her watching him overnight, but I agree to let her watch him during the day Saturday. She says she's going to sleep in, but should pick him up at around 9 or 10. 11 rolls around and I haven't heard from her. I give her a call and she says she just got home and that she can't pick him up until later, so I should just drop him off at her place. She was supposed to pick him up because she lives 30 minutes out of town on an acreage, but drives right past our house when she goes shopping. I try telling her it is too inconvenient to drive him to her place, I'll just keep him with me. But she wears me down and I eventually make the drive out to her place. I tell her I'll pick him up in the evening around 9:30 or 10. At 5, I get a text from her saying that she's decided to have a bonfire and has invited a bunch of people over. Seriously? The exact same thing as the week before? I tell her again, I don't want my son sitting out in the hot sun or hanging around the smoke from the fire. I tell her I don't care what she does, but I will pick up my son if she can't watch him. She tells me that she is watching him and that I don't need to take him. I go to get him and I am angry. I've asked her time and time again not to have him around groups of strangers, not to have him around smoke, and she just won't listen. I didn't even want to send him to her place, but she just kept nagging that she should watch him. So I planned my day around him being with her and then had to cancel a D&D game in the middle of the session because she couldn't respect my wishes. When I pick him up, she starts yelling that I am being ungrateful, she was doing a great job watching him, and how all her guests are loving him. She tells me that I'm unreasonable and rude. To top it off, she tells me that she's going to tell my Baba about my behavior and that Baba will give me a talking to. What the flip, woman? I should have known better than to try and trust her. She insists on babysitting my dog every weekend. He has pancreatitis and can't eat fatty foods. He gets extremely sick. But she ignores when I say this and continues to feed him bacon because he likes it. If she can't take care of a dog, how the heck did I think she could take care of a child? And the worst is how she keeps acting like a victim, saying I'm treating her unfairly. Man, I really needed to get this off my chest. Man, entitled family members are the worst because you can't easily cut them out of your life without, possible huge repercussions. Because there are those that will say, hey, they're family, you can't abandon them. But again, you need to realize toxicity is toxicity, no matter what. I recommend this woman really have a real talk with her mother. And if the mom doesn't change her ways, then you know what to do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.